I'm finding my black caps. Yay. And they're super tasty right now. Fresh, perfect. Okay, I'm popping on for a quick, I don't know, tidbit of the day from me. So, okay, it had just rained here this morning a lot, so the trails are super wet and I'm barefoot, but it feels good. So, okay, so there's this funny thing where people don't like taking relationship advice from people who are single, which is very interesting to me because what that says is it assumes that if you're not currently in a relationship, somehow you are not worthy of speaking to relationships, or that you somehow don't have enough experience in relationship dynamics and humans. And holy crap, look at all the black caps. I need to go get my container. Okay. Somehow you're not worthy of talking about relationships if you're not currently in a relationship, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Because that's like saying your midwife can't help you with birth if she's not currently pregnant. Just think about that for a minute. The idea that if you're not currently in a relationship, you somehow are not able to talk about relationships, or that you don't have experience in it enough. Do you realize being single, letting myself be single, and observing other people in relationships, or who have been divorced, or who are going through divorce, who are going through issues in their relationships, simply the process of observing other people has given me so much more insight and information on relationships than being in one ever really did. Because after getting out of a relationship with somebody, that's the only time you are actually able to sit with it and see the depth of your relationship and what went right and what went wrong. Because when you're in the midst of it, usually you're going to do whatever you can to save it. You make moves in accordance, in accommodation to the other person, and vice versa, to keep the relationship intact, or to try to better the relationship, even if it's not a good relationship, or even if it's not serving you, whether there's children involved, even if it's not serving you well, you will make moves in order to retain it, maintain that relationship, because that is kind of it's not really survival mode. It's a level of self-protection, because sometimes, I'd say oftentimes, when we get broken up with in particular, or when relationships fail, particularly when someone breaks up with us, we take it personally. We see, I have so much color from the berries. We take it as there being a problem with us. We can carry that like we didn't do enough. We weren't enough. We're not worthy of love. We didn't do enough for that relationship. We failed in some capacity, which, in my opinion, isn't true at all. And I have only been able to sit with that reality in recent years. Like, only in the last probably 6 months to a year have I been able to understand that my marriage ending was not because I failed at keeping it together, or I didn't do enough in the relationship. And I'm not going to speak for my ex, but I would say that's probably similar. However, I would say I have done much more of the healing work than him, because when you stay single, you are forced to sit with yourself, to sit in silence, in being alone, at home, when you're not distracting yourself with other things. It's easy to distract yourself and go to bars and get drunk or sleep with people, jump to the next relationship because it's easier than being alone. When you are alone, you sit with that. And then you are able to bring your awareness into yourself, into your life, into the people around you, and observe with more intention of how people are walking through the world. And by observing the relationships of other people, it's given me a whole lot of clarity about the dynamic of relationships, because I don't believe you can heal from a breakup yourself or from that person if you don't take time to be alone after that breakup. Period. And by alone, I mean actually alone, not distracting yourself and numbing out with drugs and alcohol and work. I mean actually being able to sit with yourself and sit with the emotions. Allow them to come through. Allow your spirit to rise up, because that is where you reconnect with yourself. You can assess what happened, where things weren't aligned and why, and what you're actually looking for in life. And that is what is going to help you align with a new partner. Not being on the rebound, not searching for a partner desperately because you don't want to be alone, not jumping from one relationship to the next, immediately going to the next relationship after a divorce because you have children and you don't want to do it by yourself and you can't afford being alone. You can't manage a household by yourself, so you want to share it with a partner, or even if it's just a friend. If it's someone of the opposite gender, chances are it's going to cross a line into some sort of romance, even if it's just transactional. And that brings me to the next point, is the more I observe relationships around me. Hi. Sorry, I am on your bike trail. You just, right. I'll move. I like these trails better. The more I observe relationships in the world today, particularly in American culture, people around me, Midwest, Wisconsin, whatever, the more I see a high level of relationships that are built on transaction, meaning what can they offer each other in terms of chores, work, money, children, family, all that. And sexual chemistry, we'll say. And it is often led with sexual connection and transactional. What can you provide the other person in terms of home management? And that's traditionally what marriage was built off of. Bringing each other's skills to the home. And it was not built on the emotional and spiritual connection of two people. And it's also very revealing when there's a lull in a relationship where if you're going a period of time without sex, say 6 months or so, and it takes such a toll on both partners or one partner in particular, usually, and they feel a complete collapse of the relationship because they aren't having sex. But what they're missing is the sex, or the lack of sex is the symptom. It's not the problem. And the focus on the lack of sex is even more revealing to what the problems are. And usually it's a person's lack of awareness. to the issues at hand. So, I'm out of breath. And there's more black caps everywhere. I went down the wrong trail too, but that's okay. I was going to go down further to the woods. Anyways, in that sense is where I think a lot of people create relationships off of the wrong things. And then it can go well for a little while. And I also believe that's where the honeymoon phase comes from. Is building a relationship in the beginning is easy because they just have a strong sexual connection and it's the new excitement of a relationship. And then over time, the facade that one or both people have been presenting fades away. And that new sexual chemistry fades away. And then they realize they actually don't have much else to go on. And that is where I think there's that's why I think relationships are changing right now. And why there's a lot of divorces and breakups. And everyone points their fingers at women being the ones who file for divorce the most. It's because women are the ones who are finally standing up and realizing with their intuition the lack of emotional care and connection and spirituality in the relationships that they're in, and no longer tolerating that low effort, because going to a job and bringing home a paycheck is no longer enough. You have to come with more, particularly spiritual and emotional care and connection with the partner. The emotional connection and spiritual connection must be the foundation, not a secondary piece. That is why I think it's also really important to not have sex too early after meeting a person, because it's really easy to confuse sexual chemistry with real chemistry, a soul-based or emotional-based chemistry. And then if your sex is like the main basis of your relationship, at some point, that's gonna fade out and you're gonna realize there's not much left. So build a foundation with somebody before you ever have sex with them, and before you ever move in with them. I believe, especially after breakups, marriages with kids involved, build a home for yourself and your children in that home before you ever try to bring somebody else and their children, possibly if they have children, into that space together, before ever moving in together. Because you do not know what you're getting into until you truly know a person. And you don't get to know a person until you take the time to get to know each other well. Months to a year at least before cohabitating, because that should not be taken lightly. People are taking this far too lightly. Blending families together, bringing children together, and then keeping that family together becomes transactional, because you're going to do whatever you can to keep it together for the children, because you made this decision to cohabitate and bring the families together before you actually got to know each other. well. And I think it is very, and I almost made this mistake, and I'm so glad that I didn't. It's so why I'm so big on that concept. Take the time. You don't need to rush a relationship. If you're rushing it, then there's a reason, and you're not paying attention to the reason behind that. If you're that scared to be alone, you need to be alone. If it's such a hard time for you to manage the home by yourself, manage the home by yourself. And hire help if you need. I'm also a big advocate of finding other single moms or single parents to share homes with. I haven't been able to do that yet, but I think that is a wonderful route to take if you can find someone to do it with. Then you're not putting yourself in a relationship dynamic that might not end up being the best thing for you or your children. It's okay to be alone. In fact, it's crucial, especially after a marriage. You need to be alone. It doesn't take a few weeks to actually heal and address your own bullshit. Because I promise you, if you sit in that darkness, if you sit in those shadows, if you sit in that discomfort long enough with yourself, you're actually going to meet the rawest depth of yourself. That's where you meet yourself and the truth of who you are and what you want. You're going to find parts of yourself that you never knew existed. And you won't meet when you're still accommodating other people, other partners, and shrinking yourself or changing yourself for them or compromising to fit their world. You won't meet that part of yourself. Be alone, be in the discomfort, and know that there is a purpose behind it. There is always a purpose behind the pain. Always. And the more you avoid it, the more it builds up inside of you and builds resentment and bitterness that you then bring to the world. Exes, all that. So be alone. Be alone.